Hello everyone. In this blue light hotspot talk, I'm going to be talking about Lemuria, the ancient civilization, advanced civilization of superpowers, of clairvoyance, telepathy, the ability to fly without being in a vehicle, to be able to transcend all kinds of lower, denser frequencies, and how they came from the stars and came to visit Earth. Now, I recently made a blue light hotspot on the Atlanteans, on Atlantis, and so I'm going to also be talking about what are the differences that I personally am experiencing. Now, my name is Nancy Rebecca. If you're new to my channel, I am a registered nurse. I am a clairvoyant, and I really work a lot with the frequencies of your human energy field and your capacity to adapt to all kinds of frequency influences so that you can expand in a way that you can maintain a life and maybe expand into the life and potential that you wish to have. So I'm not often the type of person that kind of goes off into Atlantis or off into Lemuria. I'm really kind of more of an individual that's like, hey, we got a lot going on here. Let's focus right here. However, I've been doing blue light hotspot readings on the frequencies of different countries, and I will tell you Atlantis and the Lemurian cultures are really starting to rise to the surface, those frequencies. Then they're starting to kind of calm again, and they're starting to rise. So we are currently in that kind of rising zone of consciousness where the frequency of Lemuria is really taking center stage. So I'll talk about it from my perspective. I am far away from being an expert about Lemuria, but I can tell you the frequencies that I'm picking up, and maybe you'll be able to relate to it or not. Take what you want, leave the rest. All right, so Lemuria is what I know, living here in the Pacific Northwest, very close to us, is Mount Shasta along the west coast, is supposed to have a very high level of Lemurian influence, also having communities of Lemurians that are living around Mount Shasta, also in the Hawaiian Islands and the South Pacific. There's a lot of influence of Lemurians. But there's also a great history of Lemurians in the Hindu culture as well, so you can find out more information there, and influences in the Indian Ocean. Now, the information that I have known it was like 12,000 or 20,000 years old when the Lemurians were here. And I just have to tell you, I've lived 65 years in this lifetime, and it's gone by super fast. But my sense, my intuitive abilities are telling me the Lemurian culture civilization is much older than 20,000 years ago. As a matter of fact, I've written down on my paper, could be as old as 300 million years ago. So a lot of a lot of grass has grown under our feet since that time. The Lemurians were very high level frequency beings. You could call them star beings. They definitely had an easy time existing in other dimensions. From that sense that I get that they came to the earth because why? We live in a really beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, just look around between the canyons and the deserts and the islands and the jungles and the mountain peaks like the Himalayas. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful planet that we live on. And so for whatever reason, these high-level beings determined to come to our planet, this Earth. They came and they wanted to set up a civilization of a kind of utopia, of a higher level frequency state of living from wherever they came from and their own planet. that they wanted to recreate this here on Earth. Now, the imprint, the intuitive psychic imprint that I'm having, is that there were already human beings here on this Earth at that time, or what we recognize as humans were already living on this Earth. And then the Lemurians came in and wanted to offer to help uplift and create a better life for all. And so as they began to create this very luminescent environment, it's almost like, when I talk about a light body, there's this sense about like the cities, or the areas where they resided had a very light frequency to it, not like you might have a brick or a stone that you're going to build your house out of. It's not like it was heavy like that, but it was very light. It would be almost like, in your physical body, you've got those hard bones that add structure to the physical way in which you move. My sense is about the Lemurians that they did not have that same physical structure. They were made much more of light. I was watching a nature show on squids, and squids don't have any bones, they're just this pure tissue. So it kind of reminds me of that, where they have these very advanced abilities, and because they didn't have this matter that they had to kind of rise above, that they could have those superpowers and those super abilities. So as I was tuning in and meditating on it, it was like they wanted to introduce and share with those humans who were really deeply of the earth, wanted to share the teachings. Now, what Spirit has told me is that those of you back then, and your ancestors, if you had a higher level of a star quality, so let's say that in your ancestral world that you had 4 lines of ancestors, ancient ancestors, that did originally come from the stars before the Lemurians arrived here, that when you were learning these techniques, learning these abilities, that you could very quickly rise to the head of the class. You could be the teacher's pet. You could be the one that's like, wow, you can fly, and then how come the other people in the class can't fly? So as I was asking Spirit, what Spirit was saying is that those of the culture at the time of humanity that were much more connected to nature, they didn't really understand, why do you want me to fly? Why do you want me to rise above? Why do you want me to become pure light? Why do you want me to become pure consciousness? Because it's really cool to sink my toes into the mud. It's really cool to swim with the dolphins. It's really cool to talk to trees and climb trees and really associate with different animals. So the frequencies had a deep desire, and this Lemurian culture, this advanced, very advanced culture, really wished to uplift humanity by helping all of humanity and all of the earth becoming one enormous light body. Now, here we are living in our current times. There's a lot of talk about creating the light body. There's a lot of talk about more of your soul coming into the body and your cells illuminating with light and having a higher frequency, so more of your spirit can help guide you. And so this was true back then as well, which I'm going to say hundreds of millions of years ago, to really create that light body. Now, it was interesting as I was kind of listening to Spirit describe this to me, I thought, wow, isn't this kind of what we're going through right now, where in the days even 30 years ago, it was all about creating the spirit, feeding the spirit, uplifting the spirit, really becoming high-level spiritual beings, while we were maybe also taught that the body was like the worm, like the body was of a material flesh that battled with the desire to awaken to the spirit. And so we would be really hard on our body. And now we're moving to where we're kind of finding a balance between the two of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well. So what Spirit is describing to me is that there were those that were really connected to the earth. They had those humans deeply connected to the earth, deeply connected to, you know, all of sea life and the waters and the air and the mountains and the snow and the different seasons, and really could communicate with the animals, and they could feel empathically. They could sense the grandmother trees and the grandfather trees. So what Spirit is explaining to me that in the Lemurian culture, it did highly develop, and there were many humans at the time that had star being qualities that also elevated. So there became this larger division between the two. Those who really found great benefit in rising up. And what Spirit was explaining to me is as your frequency goes higher and higher, you become more neutral. As you become more neutral, you really don't have wars, you don't have battles, you can kind of work things out with each other. There isn't kind of this inner fighting that's happening amongst each other. As you all become more neutral and more neutral, then there doesn't even seem to be these kind of high attractions to wanting to be anywhere other than where you are. So there was this enormous desire to grow into light beings that could move through walls and could move through mountains, and who could travel to the underworld and communicate with the high-level beings in the underworld. So there was a lot of that was going on, and the advanced culture was accelerating very rapidly. Now, just like with Atlantis, the Lemurians, I believe Lemuria never went away. You know, they talk about it as the great floods came and kind of, you know, the whole Lemurian civilization went under the water and existed no more. But what I've been being shown all week long are these blue pyramids. So for those of you who are new to my channel, you can go and listen to some of my blue light talks about the blue beings of light coming to the earth. The Lemurians were also very blue and had a very blue frequency. So as the Lemurians were coming through, and even the floods and the waters came, by this time I'm already told Lemuria existed at a very high level frequency, that it wasn't sitting down on the earth. What I'm also told is that those who were very connected to nature, so I kind of think about more of the empaths in the world, those who have a dominant clairsentient style, that you eventually kind of moved away from the Lemurian way of believing and teaching. That as you began, I'm going to say you, but as the culture began to have higher states of consciousness, they're like, wait a minute, I'm not quite sure that I want to go in that direction. I think I really like living, you know, in the forest. I like being a part of the earth. And so there was this division. Now, why do I mention this? Because when I did that piece about Atlantis, it was same, but different. Where in the Atlantean culture, it was more about bringing the light into the body. Less about uplifting the light into the spiritual realm of the body, but bringing more of your soul, your spirit into the body. And that's pretty much where we're going now. But I can tell you, in humanity on the earth, we still have those that would prefer to float above, meditate out of their body, and that their body just exists for the purpose of having a human experience. And then there's this other camp where in the Atlanteans, it was that part of that culture of humans that were like, why would I want to give up this holy, sacred experience with the stone people and the tree people and the bird people and the bear people and the moose people and the dolphin people? You know, it's like, why would I want to separate from that? So it's interesting as I'm listening to spirits, like, whoa, been there, done that. That's what was going on then. This is what's going on now. So what's happening now is the frequency of Lemuria is coming to the surface. I have the vision of many, many, many pyramids. Kind of a light is shining on them. Now remember, the blue light is all about what has been hidden will be revealed. And more pyramids are being revealed. And I have a friend who talks about the pyramids in Bosnia, where when you look at it, it's covered with a lot of dirt and a lot of trees. It looks like just one of the other mountains, but as they're starting to do the research, finding out that there are pyramids underneath. And then I was shown by the blue light people that deep in the earth, in the underworld, there's another hundreds and hundreds of pyramids. Now, what is the purpose and intent of pyramids? Well, I most certainly didn't know a few years back. You know, what did I think? They were burial chambers. What was I taught to think? They were burial chambers. What did, archaeologists and scientists say? They were burial chambers. But as the blue light beings were coming through, they're like, no, they're amplifiers of light. They're amplifiers of energy. And so as these amplifiers deepen the earth and the underworld, which is a really incredible existence in the center of the earth, of very wise beings that are very much a part of the earth, that they too, the center underworld is also currently going under an amplification. Now I am being told that this amplification of, I'm going to call it like a Lemurian type frequency, Atlantean type frequency, really began to amplify about 30 years ago. So for those of you who've been around that long and you wonder where your awakening process came from, I'm being told it is that as those frequencies began to amplify. Now, I am told they ebb and flow because it's like uplifting you a little bit so you can grow and settle and integrate, and then it's uplifted again. So currently, especially since we've had the solar eclipse, we've recently had the aurora borealis, we've had a lot of solar flares that have been coming in, which have been supercharging this Lemurian frequency at the surface. So what Spirit was telling me, a lot of you who maybe never, just like me, never thought about Lemuria before, are starting to have dreams, are starting to remember a time when you lived on the earth during the Lemurian culture. Now, it doesn't mean that you finished Lemurian school. It doesn't mean that you continued to grow into that pure state of light and lifted up, although some of you may have. But you may have been one of those during the Lemurian culture where you decided to stay here as a part of the earth. You wanted to really blend in with just this incredible beauty and sacredness of pure nature. So, and you were able to communicate with animals and plants. So the Atlantean culture or way of learning for those humans that really connected with nature, that may have been a better fit for you. And so, and this is the thing, that Atlanteans and Lemurians kind of overlapped at a certain point. But from my intuitive information, and again, it is not your intuitive information, from my intuitive information, that Lemurians were that they were around for a much longer period of time, and then as those who they divided and decided to kind of go more towards the Atlantean way, which was much more about bringing, I said it, the light in the body and bringing the light to be a part of humanity and a part of nature. So it looks like that's when that kind of division came. Now, in some things I've read, there's like, the Atlanteans and Lemurians had conflicts with each other. I don't know about that. That's not the sense that I feel, but it's just where you will gravitate towards a different way of learning. And just like now, there's a lot of you out there that have your different ways of expanding in your consciousness, expanding in your superhuman powers of clairvoyance or being able to feel frequencies on the earth or hear telepathic communication or have that high level wisdom and knowledge from that knowingness level. You're all going to choose the different ways that work for you. Now, being a nurse who also happens to be a clairvoyant psychic healer, what I'm finding right now is these frequencies are going up. Where the challenge is in the human body. So the challenge is where you may be struggling to bring more light into the body when you are still holding on to some denser energies. So if you've been visiting my YouTube channel and you've subscribed to it, you listen in, you will often hear the spirit guides come through and they'll say, get out in nature. Get out in nature. And so whether you are meditating on the higher frequencies of star beings or the angelic realm or ascended masters, or you're sitting in the middle of the forest and you are communing with the trees, those are two different learning styles. But what I'm finding now is we are growing in a place where we love ourselves, and we're growing in a place where we love each other and we have a kind, caring nature towards each other as we build our unified way of growing into a new state of consciousness. And I do see that that's where we're going, but it looks like to me that our earth has gone through several learning phases. And so, when the Lemurians were here, it was highly successful in some ways, and they could use their superpower to move maybe big blocks of marble or stones, that they could see the higher perspective, that they could transform material things into other items or turn it into light items, and that worked, but it didn't work for everyone. And then Atlanteans came along and it's like, well, let's try this different approach. Well, we have the same thing here on Earth. It's like you can be in a convent or you can be in an ashram where you decide to move away from the world, or you may be the type that you really want to move with the world. But it's like the Lemurians were much more neutral. The Atlanteans were much more connected to the creative projects like music and poetry and literature, dance, painting, carving statues. Like there was an enormous amount of creativity amongst the Atlanteans. But it was a spiritual creativity with Lemurians. Did they exist? Well, I can feel the intensity of those frequencies coming up right now during this next blue light hotspot. And so I would encourage you to really let yourself meditate and just imagine, don't let yourself be influenced by external information. Just let yourself say, hey, I just want to feel what that Lemurian frequency feels like right now. Is it compatible with my body? How do I like that? It does feel really nice. I will say that. It does feel really nice. But again, your work right now is to help continue to let go of those denser energies so that you can bring more light into the body. Now, I will say, not only are we seeing a lot of blue pyramids rise to the surface, so we're going to find it on the surface of the earth, it is also in the underworld. What has been hidden will be revealed. I suspect over the next 50 years, we're going to find hundreds and hundreds of pyramids that were not seen before, as it amplifies the light on the earth. But I was also shown this crystal. And the Lemurians showed me this crystal, and the words that came was, did I write it down? Blue lace. Blue lace. That's why I'm kind of wearing this light blue jacket. So it's a light blue with white marbling throughout. So I went to go look up to see if there actually was a crystal or a stone called blue lace, and there actually is. And it's to help bring in a calmness to the body. It helps settle the body as your body's going through a transformational process. So I encourage you to look it up online, look it up in one of your crystal books, go to a crystal store. You might want to get yourself some of the blue lace stones that the Lemurians are telling me that they're highly connected with. So the Lemurian side of you definitely may be waking up at this time. Don't be surprised if you find yourself really curious about it. Apologies that I didn't describe it in detail, but I will just tell you I see Lemuria did not go away, that Lemuria is just at this higher frequency. And as your higher frequency goes up, you're going to start being able to see that spiritual world, to where you're going to be able to see angels and ascended masters, and you're going to be able to see that other world of civilization, of a Lemurian culture that still exists to this day. The Atlanteans I see also exist, but they're at kind of this richer, more colorful, more creative frequency. So is one more advanced than the other? No, they kind of came together in a certain way. Like, they're not dramatically different. How they're the same is they were very, very advanced cultures. And that's where we're becoming. We're becoming more advanced in our intuitive psychic abilities during this time, so that you can better enhance your enjoyment of day-to-day living. So I would love to really learn a lot more through the intuitive archaeologists that tune in. What do you know about Lemuria? What have you meditated on? Do you feel like you are Lemurian, or do you feel like you're Atlantean? When you communicate with the Lemurians, what are you hearing the Lemurians say about the next 50 years that we're going through in our evolutionary process? So I hope that you enjoyed satisfying a little bit of your curiosity about Lemuria. I know that I did, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Blue Light Hotspot.